Okay, hi everyone, welcome to my video. So, we're going to be taking you through the process of me making my first rug. You can see the bundles and bundles and bundles of yarn that I picked up from Joann's. I actually got 100% acrylic yarn. I think it's called Red Heart brand. I got 4 of each colors because I was planning on tufting with double strands, basically feeding 2 bundles through 1 gun. So I wasn't sure how much it was going to take, so I just got pretty much every color with 4 bundles total. So after about a good chunk of time trying to figure out where I was going to fit all of this yarn, because I did not think far ahead when I was buying all of it as to where exactly I would put it, but it ended up working out in the end. So you may have noticed the pool noodles on the bed. I got them to make little safety bumpers for my tufting frame. I got this tufting frame from the tuftinggun.com starter kit. It came with a tufting gun, a frame, enough cloth to get you started, and yeah, it's a pretty good frame, honestly. Like, I like it. But there are exposed nails on these frames, so I have scraped my leg against them walking by, and my cats like to rub up against it, so I actually had cardboard on before I got these pool noodles. But I did see someone use pool noodles as like a safety guard for something one time, so I was like, I wonder if it would work on a frame, and it did, so it's pretty cool. I ended up just cutting them to size and then putting a slice down one side and kind of wedging it on. I did label all of them so I would know what they were sized for what. So after this, on to the figuring out how to put tufting cloth on your tufting frame. This was an absolute, I'm not gonna cuss, but it was so hard. Oh my god. I ended up just stapling it. Like, I used staples on the outside of the frame because it would not stay on those goddamn nails. So beginner tip, just use a stapler. Just give up and use a stapler. I also tied a string to a marker to make a perfect circle, and you can obviously tell that I did mess up, but it's fine. So I kind of just drew out my design and I labeled the colors, so I knew what was what. And then I got to tufting. I threaded my yarn through the little through the gun. And pro tip, make sure your gun is unplugged while you do this, because there are tiny scissors at the end of this gun, and if you happen to accidentally pull the trigger with your hand in front of it, you are going to get hurt. I'll make a whole video on gun safety. I'll make a whole video on gun safety at one point in time. But, so yeah, basically the key here is just pressure, push against the cloth. The cloth definitely has to be pulled incredibly tight, and I think that was the problem when it comes to my cloth not staying. As I pulled one side, it came off the other side. So highly, highly recommend. I have not heard one person on YouTube say this, but just staple your cloth. I don't know why. Maybe there's a reason, but yeah. So it definitely kept my cloth there, and I saw a bunch of people like on their videos having to tighten their cloth in the middle of a project, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I just stapled the shit out of it all the way around, and it stayed the entire time, and it stayed hella tight, so I didn't have to re-tighten anything. So yeah, pressure is definitely key, and make sure every time that you're not tufting or you're going to set your gun down to flip the kill switch on the side. There's a little kill switch to flip it off whenever you're not going to use it, because this thing is a power tool and you can get incredibly hurt. So over to the way that I pulled my yarn from, I saw a lot of people wrap their cones, like, or their bundles into cones to make it easier, and then I saw someone just pull it straight from the middle and it worked fine. So what I ended up doing to save time was just pull straight from the middle of the bundles and kind of wedge in between, because I didn't have cones. And yeah, and it worked fine. The only downside to doing this is sometimes there is tension and it snags, which basically means the yarn's gonna pull right out of your gun. Anytime the yarn snags or doesn't pull out very like evenly and fast, and there's no tension, it will just pull right out of your gun, and you have to needle your gun. What is it called? Oh my god, I don't even know. Rethread your gun. So, to avoid this, I had to kind of, if you can see what I'm doing, I'm pulling some yarn out ahead of time. So, as I do a run with my gun up the cloth, it doesn't get pulled too tight. And then when I keep going, if you see the yarn, it gets closer to the bundle. Every time, look, it pulls right out. So, anytime it got a little bit of tension, it pulled right out of my gun. And that is a freaking hassle. Every time you have to rethread your gun, you have to unplug it just for the sole fact of not chopping off your fingers. So that was definitely a bitch. I hated that part. But once I figured out that as long as I keep it from getting tension, that won't happen. So I definitely learned that the hard way and fairly quickly. But yeah, so I just recommend maybe buying yarn on a cone. I haven't gotten yarn on a cone, but I've heard it's like way better. So maybe do that. And yeah, and other than that, my back hurt after doing this because I was like in such an awkward position, kind of crammed between my dresser and my bed. So I would say maybe do what other people do and put the frame on a table and clamp it down so you're standing or in a better position than I was, not kind of leaning over. But other than that, yeah, this whole process only took me about, I want to say, 2.5 hours at most, and a lot of that was just figuring out how the gun worked. So, yeah, and when it comes to how much yarn I used about half of what I put in. So I would thread 2 bundles, and I only used about half. Um, so I'm not sure how exactly much that is, but yeah. Yeah, and every time I switched colors, obviously I had to switch out the yarn. And then I had to do this beautiful, beautiful threading process, which is terrifying. Unless your gun is unplugged, then there's not really a way for it to actually hurt you. So I would definitely highly recommend that. So other than threading and all that stuff, if you notice, if you look closely, I'm only going in up and down lines. I'm not really following the squiggly pattern that I did. And this is because the copious amounts of research I did said the best thing you can do as a beginner, unless you are highly, highly, highly skilled, is to avoid doing anything but straight lines, which was confusing because I was like, how the hell am I going to do straight lines if I want to have squiggly lines in my rug? Well, I do it just like you see. You can turn literally anything into straight lines only, and it'll still come out how you want it to. I basically just start where my line is, go up, and stop where my line is, and there's just a ton of longer lines and shorter lines, eventually leading into a curvy looking ending product. But if you want to avoid ripping or making holes in your cloth or anything like that, definitely just stick to doing a straight line. And it's not as easy as it looks. I was watching a ton of videos while I was waiting for my tufting stuff to get here, and I was like, oh, that looks incredibly easy. And then I got a gun in my hand, and keeping this power tool straight is actually harder than I thought it would be because it's moving so fast and there's so much power behind it. It wants to go all over the place. So you really have to like squeeze your arms and squeeze your core and like hold that shit tight in order to keep a straight line, all while focusing on your thread not tangling or gaining any tension and ripping out of your gun, and making sure you're not running over lines you already did or doing a line too far away from your previous line. So just be cautious of that. Definitely would not recommend going straight into this with doing curved lines or anything but straight lines. I also recommend doubling up your yarn. So I did see a lot of people only doing one strand of yarn through their gun, and I mean it works, but I saw someone do 2 strands and they said that it made their rug way more thick, and there wasn't any holes, and it was just very, very put together and very, very thick. And I wanted that, so I tried 2 strands of yarn first, and I love it. I'm literally only going to do 2 strands with the rest of my rugs. My rug ended up being so thick. Also, something to note is in this video I'm using the cut pile gun, which is the gun that has the tiny scissors at the end to cut after every needle punch. So what this basically means is when you do a run, at the bottom of your line, there's a piece of yarn that's just kind of chilling there. You can actually pull on that and it pulls straight out without pulling out the other pieces. You can see me doing this throughout the whole time lapse. So as you pull these things out, it only pulls out the one hole. It doesn't unravel your whole backing completely. And it's something you want to do because you want to have a clean back when you go to put glue on. You don't want a ton of strands. So I recommend pulling out the pieces that didn't go all the way through or are still hanging out. You can see me doing it here towards the end, pulling out those little bit of strands and leaving a very clean surface. After I completed the 2 hours of tufting, I took my rug outside in the air and I used my 3095 carpet adhesive, which was, I want to say that whole tub was like $6. And I used a piece of cardboard to spread it because I don't have a plastic spatula like most of you guys that are tufting. Anything really works. I will say that it was a little more difficult with the cardboard just because it wasn't meant to spread stuff, so it was I had to keep folding it to make it tougher, but I just spread a thin layer of the carpet adhesive. And yeah, and then I just left it outside to dry, and that took a good like 6 days. So back after it's completely dried, which took longer than I thought it would, but I also went on a little mini vacation, so I was gone. I also realized that stapling this cloth to the frame made it an absolute bitch to take off, so I had to find a staple remover and individually remove each staple to get this thing off. I couldn't just peel it off like everyone else does, which would have been nice, but also I did like the fact that it stayed on while I was tufting. So this took a second. Also, I do want to say, be very cautious that there are nails sticking out of this thing. I had so many cuts all over my arms and my hands, and my thumb bled just because I wasn't being 100% cautious of the fact that there are nails sticking out of this frame when I first started tufting. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that, obviously. So I cut about, I want to say like an inch or two away from the rug, cut all of it off. I did save this cloth because there are parts that are usable and I want to make smaller like coasters by hand punching. You'll see my cats get in the way. I promise I didn't cut any whiskers off or let them lick the glue. I shooed them away, but they do get all up in my business. So this part you see me cutting little slits all the way around, and this is just to make it easier to fold the pieces over. I did use hot glue, and I cut off some of the thread that I ended up folding over. I wanted to make it a perfect circle, so this was the process of doing that. It didn't take that long, and it took like 2 sticks of hot glue, I want to say. But the hot glue worked very, very, very well. Definitely, definitely recommend. I just got this glue gun from like a local Michael's. You can get one from Amazon. You can get one from pretty much anywhere. I did not have any backing fabric on hand, so I took an old t-shirt that I don't wear and I cut a perfect circle, and yep, I used my hot glue gun once again, just kind of doing line strands. This shit worked perfectly, so highly recommend if you're balling on a budget and you don't want to go buy a yard of fabric from your local craft store, use an old t-shirt that you were planning on getting rid of anyway. And it worked perfectly. So after gluing the backing on, I flipped it over and I cut off all of the threads that were just kind of a little too long and ruining the look and the edges. Vacuumed, repeat, and then over and over until I thought it looked really good. And that was pretty much it, honestly. Went outside, took some fun little pictures of my new rug, but that really just concludes the rug making process. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to use the comment section below. If this was helpful at all, please, please, please subscribe. It really does help me and it is free. Thank you for watching, guys.